Zero painting experience? No problem. These loose flowers practically paint themselves. I'm telling you, if you can hold a brush, you can paint these flowers. So go grab your paints. This is going to be the most fun and relaxing thing you do all day. Now, just really quickly, before we dive into these carefree flowers, I thought it might be fun to do a few color swatches and tell you some quick info about these paints that are coming with my year-long watercolor classes in a box. I've already gone ahead and labeled all of the paint colors just to speed things up a little bit. I'm not going to take too much time on this, but I did want to show you the beautiful colors that are going to be included. I'll just start out with some of the lighter colors first before my water gets too tainted with color, and I will be painting a darker value of the paints straight out of the half pans, as well as a light and more watered down version, just so you can see the difference of the two values. Now, if you're new to my channel, let me just fill you in quickly on these watercolor classes in a box. These subscriptions will last for an entire year, with one box coming every month right to your door. And inside the boxes, you'll find that they have everything you need to create lovely pieces of artwork. I'll just show a little glimpse of a few of the paintings that we will be working on through this course up in the corner of the screen. But as I said, they have everything you need, including watercolor paper, 4 of these half pan paint colors every month, which will amount to 48 colors altogether. It will include a printed out outline that you can trace to get you started painting, 2 of my specially designed Craftamo brushes every month, which will be a total of 24 brushes by the end. And I will have some exclusive, slow-paced, step-by-step painting tutorials to help you paint your artwork. But that's not all. There will also be a few extra gifts as well in the first 3 boxes that will hopefully be a fun addition too. Definitely lots to look forward to. Just last week, I actually did a brush stroke painting demo using the 24 brushes. If you'd like to take a look at what they can do, I will leave a product page link for these watercolor classes in a box in the description of this video, so you can check it out if you're interested. And I will also leave some links to the previous tutorials that have more information on the products as well, if that would be helpful too. And just as a side note, these are only available for a limited time, actually only about 16 or 17 days left of the sale, in fact, and these classes are set at a discounted price right now as well, so make sure you take advantage of this while the offer lasts. But enough of that, back to the color swatches. Aren't these colors so beautiful so far? I've had so much fun painting with these. There are so many possibilities in here. It's been truly enjoyable to create paintings using these paints. I've tried to pick colors for these boxes that are not only beautiful, but also that have some common colors, as well as some that are maybe not so common, just to change things up a little bit. These paints are artist grade paints, which is generally considered to be in the professional category rather than the amateur student grade. They are smooth and bright, and I haven't noticed a lot of granulation in the paints. That's not necessarily a good or bad thing, but some people have personal preferences on that. As far as the light fastness of the paint goes, the majority of these paints are placed at a 3-star rating, with a small handful being at a 2-star rating. So that is also pretty good. I'm not going to go over each individual paint's light fastness right now, but the good news is that when these paints arrive in your monthly subscription boxes, they will have labels on them that will list the paint color names and also have the light fast star rating on them as well. So hopefully that will be helpful. I'm just going to quickly finish up the rest of these swatches, so if you're interested in seeing all of these amazing colors, stick around. If not, feel free to skip to the wildflower painting portion of the video and you can go ahead and get started on that. At this point, I'm getting pretty far along with the paint sample colors, but just look at the overall color of these. Aren't they fantastic? We're just about ready to get into our flower painting, and now that I've had a chance to show these off in their raw form, I really think we have some good options of colors to go with our painting today. In fact, the fun thing about these flowers that we'll be painting today is that you can literally paint them in whatever colors you want. I truly think they would look good in anything you want to try. So now that I'm done with these little color swatch samples, I'll just place this off to the side as a reference page that I can use to pick out some colors from that I think might look good together. And actually, I am going to change out my water for some clean water as well. I'll be back with a clean slate here in just a second. All right, now let me just pull out another sheet of watercolor paper really quick, and I do have a few little markings on here just to help with my composition and placement, but you don't have to do this. This painting is super freehand painting friendly. Sometimes it just helps me visualize things a little bit better to put a few pencil marks on here, even if I don't follow them exactly. Just for information's sake though, if you would like to mark your paper as well, all I have on here are 3 center points for the larger flowers. As far as placement goes, if you drew a line in between them, it would form a little triangle. I have 2 taller stalks for some smaller flowers up near the top of the page, and lastly just some lines at the bottom of the page for stem lines or maybe grass blades or leaves. And like I say, you don't have to follow this exactly. It's just a good way to get you started, especially if that blank page seems a little bit intimidating. And one last thing, you may have noticed that I have left the area around the larger flower centers free of any pencil marks so that I can start painting in the petals and I don't have to have lines going through them. That, of course, is optional as well. Just thought I'd point it out. Okay, friends, let's go ahead and get started turning brushstrokes and blobs into blossoms and pretend like we meant to do it all along. I'll just quickly tape my paper down with some artist tape and I'll be ready. All right, now I've picked out a handful of brushes to try out with this piece. I have a few different types here to play around with, but if you don't have these exact ones, you could probably do most of this with a few different sizes of round brushes too. So just pull out what you have on hand and we'll give it our best shot. Here I've pulled out 2 rigger brushes, a number 1 and a number 2 size. Then for a larger round brush, I have here a number 10 round, and I also have a medium size filbert. This one is 1/2 inch, and you can easily find this just by measuring the base or width of the bristles. Then for a fun addition, I have a 1/4 inch cat's tongue brush, and I really think you're going to be surprised at how pretty the flowers are going to be that we make with this one. And lastly, I have a 3/8 inch angle brush. Okay, let's just jump right in. I think I'll start with sort of a daisy or black-eyed Susan type flower first. I'd like to try some of this gamboge, I think, for that. This is just a rich golden yellow. It's one of my personal favorites. Then using the number 10 round brush, I'll come in here to where I have drawn the center for one of the flowers with a pencil, place the tip of the brush right at the center, then I'll just start to pull that brush out and at the same time also press down on the bristles to create a lovely little petal shape. And that really is all there is to it. Super simple. We'll just keep moving around the flower center to create more all the way around. Now, something that is fun to try with this to give it a bit more dimension, but of course is also optional, is after you load your brush with the paint color on the tray, just swipe the tip of the brush right in the 1/2 pan of gamboge, and then when you paint the petals, you'll get a natural gradient of values in there that really add a little something extra to the look. Now, as I start painting in the petals closer to the top of the flower, I'm going to make my strokes a little smaller to give the illusion like the flower is tilted to more of a side-facing view. These are also super simple to create. I'm pretty much just pressing down on the bristles like it's a stamp, and this creates really nice, smaller petal shapes. Okay, great job. Let's put that round brush off to the side and pull out something different for the next 2 flowers. Maybe let's try the filbert brush this time. And I think I'll use a little bit of purple to really complement that yellow color. This is just some dioxazine purple. And you know what? I also might just mix a touch of phthalo blue in here as well. This is going to be really pretty. Now for these flowers, rather than starting at the center and moving the stroke outward, because the filbert has such a natural, lovely round end, we'll start with the outside rounded end of the petal first and then move inward, creating a point at the center. Now, last week I did show some of these strokes in more detail if you'd like to go back and practice with that really quick, but the basic idea here is about how you move or turn your brush as you create the stroke. If you slightly turn the brush in your hand from the broad end to the thin side, then this is going to create a thick to thin stroke. You can also do sort of a swiping motion where your hand stays remotely in the same position, but because of the direction the stroke is going, it creates sort of a natural thick to thin stroke. This might take a little bit of practice to get the hang of and the feel for it, but this is super fun to do, and there are so many fun free-handed painting possibilities using the filbert brush. So it's definitely worth the practice. As far as these flowers go, you can paint as many or as few petals on here as you want. You can also change the look up a little bit by combining strokes together to make some a larger size, or you can use the thin side of the brush to make thinner looking petals, just whatever you want to try. And I will say, if you're having a hard time getting the filbert to work for you, or you don't have one, you can make similar type flowers using a round brush instead. Okay, very good. We have a great start going here. Let's try some small little flowers on the upper stalks next to change things up a little bit. I will also switch brushes again and move on to the cat's tongue brush. I'm telling you, you are going to love this. I think I'll go ahead and pull out a pretty pink for these. This lovely color is called quinacridone magenta, and I'm also going to mix up a few other colors using this color as the base. I first have some of the pure color, and then I will also take some of this pink and mix it with just a touch of the purple that's on our tray as well. We are going to need some green color also, so let's try some sap green, and we're going to get a little bit crazy here and also mix up some sap green with a tiny bit of the quinacridone magenta. All right, that looks like a good assortment. You'll see why we did this in just a minute. Now let's take the cat's tongue brush out and load it with some of the pink color, and we are just going to start making some loose, small bundles of flowers alongside these two pencil lines or stalks that we have at the top of the page. These are super simple. In fact, I don't know if there's a wrong way you can do this. We're just, again, basically creating a stamp shape of the bristles by just pressing down on the brush. You can, of course, make these flowers longer as well by just pulling out on that stroke a little bit. I am going to be keeping most of these on the smaller side probably, but I am going to have some larger at the bottom of the stalk and then gradually start making them smaller and smaller as I move upward. Something I'll point out here too is that I'm not painting these directly on the pencil line. These are placed more off to the sides a little ways, and later we'll come back in here and connect them to the main stem using a small brush and some green paint. You also might notice that as I move up the stalk, not only am I making them a little smaller in size, but I'm changing up the colors a little bit as well. You of course have the freedom to try whatever you want. I'll probably throw a few purplish ones in here, and then I'll actually move on to some of the greenish pink purple mix at the top to make them look like they're buds still waiting to open. At the very tip top, I'll just have some pure green paint for the smallest buds. And you know what? This cat's tongue brush actually has a really nice point to it. I'll bet I can even just use this brush to go ahead and paint some thin lines stemming from the buds and flowers right down to the stalk. If you need to though, you can pull out a smaller brush for this. I hope you're enjoying the tutorial so far. I try to put out fun and easy to follow step-by-step tutorials using a variety of skill levels so that there's something for everyone. If that sounds like something that you're interested in and you like my painting and teaching style, I hope you'll subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss out on any of my new and upcoming weekly tutorials. Great job! Isn't this a fun start? I think we are just about ready to move on to the greenery at the base, but really quick, let's try adding in some little flower buds down below. I actually think I can use the cat's tongue for this as well. Let's start with a yellow one first. In fact, we could even try mixing some yellow into the pink on our tray to make it more orangey looking. I think I'll add just another one just above here. Maybe I'll change things up and use some green this time though. And to make them a little bit different looking, I am sort of keeping them rough and jagged. Okay, let's go ahead and mix up some nice green colors and we can start painting in the greenery. I might go ahead and use the sap green and the quinacridone magenta mixture again, but this time to darken it up just a little bit more, I'll throw in some Hooker's Green Dark too. You know, while I've got this color out and ready, maybe down here I'll paint in sort of a jaggedy leaf along the stem line just for fun. I think this is good enough for the cat's tongue. Maybe let's switch over to the angle brush next and paint in some nice leaves and grass blades. I need a few more green colors. Maybe I'll pull out a little bit of olive green as well as some pure Hooker's Green Dark so that I have a bit of variety to choose from. Now, leaves and grass blades are some of the funnest, that probably isn't the correct way to say that. I should probably say the most fun, I guess. But anyway, these are so fun to paint with the angle brush. They look good and they're not hard to do once as you got the hang of it. I like to hold the brush so that the longer side of the bristles is pointing downward, sort of so it looks like you're holding the brush upside down. But as I started editing this video, I realized my hand is in the way for this demonstration. So I've pulled up some footage from last week where I used these same brush strokes so you can see what I'm talking about a little bit better. I'll start the stroke out with the brush turned to the thin side of the bristles. I'll start pulling that out, and as I do, then I'll gently start to rotate the brush in my hand to the thick side of the bristles for the thick part of the leaf or grass blade. Then I'll turn it back again to the thin side and finish off the stroke with a point. And of course, you can make these longer or shorter depending on how far you pull that stroke out, but this is super fun and super quick, a great way to fill in greenery space. And you know what? I actually am going to pull out that cat's tongue brush again to paint in a few leaves as well. You kind of just paint these using a similar stroke as the angle brush, but because the shapes of the bristles are different, you are, of course, going to get a bit of a different look. And like I say, if you need a little bit more slow-paced, detailed instruction on any of these brush strokes we've used today, just go back and watch my last week's tutorial. All right, I think that's good for the leaves right now. I don't want to overdo it or get carried away. Sometimes less is more, and if we need to, we can always come back and add more in later. I'll just pull out a number 2 rigger brush and use some of this green paint to start painting in some stem lines next. I want these stem lines to be slightly thicker, which is why I'm using the number 2 instead of the number 1, but a number 1 rigger would work as well, or you could also use a small round brush, just whatever you have on hand. And I am planning to try to use a variety of these colors on the stems as well. Okay, now that I have more thick stems on here, I'll go ahead and switch over to the smaller number 1 rigger and paint in some smaller, more thin and delicate lines. Maybe I'll start by connecting this little leaf branch together here, but I'm also planning on having a few random thin lines here and there as well, just to add a little bit more character to the piece. In fact, you know what might be fun? On some of these thinner lines, maybe we can add some dots of color in little groupings at some of the tops of them and make them sort of look like little seeds or buds or leaves or something. Ooh, I am really liking this little addition that is adding something special to the piece. I think all we have left to do now is just paint in the centers of the larger flowers. Maybe I'll grab a number 3 round for this part, and let's start with a little bit of gamboge in the centers of the purple flowers first. While we let that dry, let's pull out some sepia or dark brown and paint in the center of the yellow flower next. Now you can just do dots, or you can try stamen lines with dots on the ends, just whatever you want to try or what you feel like looks good. Maybe to add a bit of dimension here, we can take a touch of black, like this lamp black, and add that into more of the base of the flower centers. I might even take a touch of vermilion and add a few dots of this color into these purple flower centers as well. And you know what? I think we can actually call this little piece done for the day. Wasn't that so much fun? This was just simple and quick, but sometimes it's nice to take a break from a big detailed painting and just play around and simply enjoy painting for what it is. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you had some fun and maybe even learned something new. And don't forget to go check out my monthly subscription boxes. Again, these are only for sale for a couple more weeks. And of course, if you did enjoy this tutorial, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel so I can continue to help you discover your artistic side.